Hello, beautiful beloveds. This is Sundari, the alchemist of light, also known as Marci Mentor. So excited to have you joining me today on the Awaken Being Conversations to Create Change. I'm super stoked about this because I get asked all the time, like, why don't you do more shows on Marcy on medicine and sharing all these amazing experiences and these conversations? And this is to share on that aspect of talking about plant medicine, sacred sacraments, these clairvoyant visionary gifts that we have to be able to access. And so joining me today for this conversation is Phyllis Wilson, who's a master coach and teacher and guide, such a beautiful being, kind of tuning in and sharing her recent experience with me in Colombia and a lot of the elements to, preparing, after, in between, all the spaces where we just get to talk and share about all the aspects. And this is called Your Expansion into Bliss, because we talk specifically about the code of releasing suffering and expanding into bliss and how that is also possible. So I'm so excited to have you here with me to join into this. Know that you can also go to marcilock.com. If you haven't yet, highly recommend you get free access to the Freedom Activators. This is my baseline program that walks you through anything unconscious to be able to consciously react, respond, and choose and create a new experience. And you can obviously check out any area of resistance you might be having some struggle with right now. It's just showing you what wants to be healed and loved and receive what's on the other side. So if you want to tune into any of the specific programs such as money medicine or awaken relationships or unconscious programming, if there's some activations and meditations that can support you in receiving new sound and light codes to upgrade your system. There's so much support there. So please check that out. Also the book, Awaken Being, Living in Liberation, Abundance, and Bliss now. So many gifts to be able to support us in upgrading our experience. So I love you guys. Thank you for joining and enjoy the show. Hello, beloveds. It is Sundari, Marci Mentor, the alchemist of light, welcoming you to another conversation on the Awaken Being Conversations to Create Change. And this is fun because this is like diving into the Marci on Medicine series, which I get so many requests for. And having just run 2 retreats in Colombia recently, it's so potent in the field. We have a documentary coming out also that's featuring me and my story and the people that go down there and why we use these sacred, I want to call them clairvoyant visionary medicines, these sacred sacraments to open and awaken our consciousness, to access our gifts, all of our multidimensional, not just healing and trauma work, which is like, duh, like everyone talks about that and we know that, but also all the other aspects of this. And so I asked my beautiful beloved Phyllis Wilson is who's joining us right now. She's a personal client who I've been working with for the last year. And of course, one of my, once I've been working with plant medicines and sacred sacraments for 14 years. And once I experienced this, it was like, how could I not like give this gift to the people that I'm fully invested in, that are a part of my, the journey that I'm supporting them in? And it became, I've got to take my personal clients to Colombia, where I've gone for 10 plus years, and to experience these things. Phyllis is going to be coming to my June retreat here in just a little bit, working with also psilocybin and 5-MeO. So she also just did the journey down to Colombia, working with ayahuasca and this was your very first time. But first off, guys, I just want to give you a little insight into who Phyllis is, because Phyllis she's a master. She's a fucking master teacher and guide and coach. She's building and developing a huge media company for conscious media. She has a podcast called We're All Right, which you guys can definitely check out, and we'll make sure the links to. But her gift and genius is teaching and supporting coaches, amazing established coaches, on how to master their game of coaching, how to become highly conscious and work in a high level with their clients and accessing these things. So if you guys are in that realm and looking for someone to support you in that, she is a master Jedi. She is glorious, right, Phyllis? Glorious.
That's right. That's
so
right.
Glorious. And what I love about this from the get-go is I want to give you guys just a snippet to kind of know why to stick around and hear all the aspects that we want to speak about in this journey. Because Phyllis, maybe you can share, Phyllis, maybe what your experience was, or what you're kind of experiencing before working with me, or before going and going through this sacred experience, and maybe a quick niche of what you were experiencing after, and then we can kind of dive in.
Yeah. So good. So happy to be here. Yeah. So I have, well, like many of us in the pandemic, but my have been really isolated. Um, but my disconnection, I felt a real disconnection from humanity, from people, from it became really hard to maintain relationships and things like that. Even before the pandemic. So that's where I have been. And I kind of came off of, a few years of kind of struggling in that realm, even as my business started to grow and take off and things were feeling really good. I remember when we first connected or a year ago, it was like, yeah, things are great. And then I found out so much more.
Yes.
And I didn't even know it at the time. But before, we've talked about for the last couple of months that my journey has been so much about the kind of day-to-day human stuff until Colombia, when it was like, boom, everything just totally opened up. And since then we'll get more into this, but like I've been living in, bliss is my baseline.
Yes.
from then. Yeah.
Which I just want to reference you guys to hear. I mean, so I don't know how many people can relate to, I mean, I related to this. Phyllis was definitely in this space where it's like bliss. What the fuck is bliss? Like, that's a little too woo-woo for me. That's a little too like, can we really believe that we can live in bliss as our norm, which is our divine birthright and our natural state? And yet, so as Phyllis and I were coaching and working through different aspects and layers of upping her experience with life, her lovership with life, right? All those things were like, oh, lovership. Can I be in lovership with things? Like, it was like starting on the micros to really begin to align to that frequency. And I remember, Phyllis, bliss for you, the word was even like, I can't believe that. So we started with joy. Can you believe that we can experience more joy every day? Now, so we're going to fast forward, coming back from Colombia, first coaching call I got back on with Phyllis, and she's like, I am bliss. Life is bliss. Everything is bliss. Everything just effortlessly aligns, and I am bliss, and everything's meant to be bliss. You also had experienced a lot of struggles in feeling good in your body, right? And fighting your body, which I also relate to. I went years fighting my body. And you got, which we can share more of the experiences, but you got a whole recoding in Colombia of knowing how your body worked and aligning to peace with your body. And you came back and you were just like, in total, I think you shed like 20 to 40 pounds anyways, right? But also just coming back and there was release of any ideas or suffering or struggle with your body. You started working out and doing all these things. You're just like, yeah, it's like no thought of ever fighting resistance with my body. And those two alone, my love, that's just two of the many, many things that I know we experienced there. And I like to frame this for people, and that most of, I think, I know you said it was even double. Most clients that go down there are like, it feels like I did 20 years plus of inner journey work in a week. And it's like, that's how much shifts, right? Instead of like, we're all in this, like in our level of what we know and what we can process with our human brain, et cetera. We're on this, if you're on the committed path of journeying, right? Through that ascension. And you're like, oh, for me, like within the first couple of days, you're like, it's already been like 40, so it's, woo! So massive shifts can happen. So I guess what we want to come back to is then, why do people not know or access utilizing these sacred sacraments and these clairvoyant, visionary plants that are here to awaken and open our consciousness? And I'll just say right now, my loves, so as I mentioned really quickly, that just recently we got offered that another one of the beloveds that was in my second retreat, she was in the same one as you. She had such a massive transformational experience for her first time as well, doing plant medicines. And she's like, there's a reason why I knew I had to go with you, because as you know, I am very specific about, we do massive preparation and preparing our bodies and processing and all the things. And then when we're there, we learn how to work with the medicine, in energy to be able to just massively transform, open up our consciousness, heal and all that. And we're doing integration the whole time so that we can keep receiving layer after layer. Then there's integration after, and there's a very specific formula. This is not, you just show up and, I don't even know who's the facilitator and who what the medicine is like, or the sacred space, which now, having the experience you did, you're probably like, I can't even imagine doing sacred work in that way. But so many, 99% of the people that I talk to that have experienced it or are afraid of going to experience it is because all the crazy traumas that it can create when you don't have every piece of this formula working for you. So it's like, they're like, yeah, I went and did it and it was traumatic. And I talk to people nonstop that it was like a traumatic experiences. They feel fragmented. They don't know how to deal with what's the ego and what's the medicine guiding them, how to be able to integrate that into life. And so it's a shit show. And so that's common. That's really common. I'd love to hear from you on what because you had never done plant medicine. This was your first experience. What were your ideas, fears, thoughts, the things you knew about it? Where were you at before?
Yeah. So I had been invited on some of these like ayahuasca somewhere in the woods with someone I don't really know adventures. And I had definitely seen at least one documentary on people like, dying. I'll say this is that I didn't have a fear of that, like the medicine itself necessarily, because I knew that you had a relationship with the people there, that I knew every step of this process, like how this was going to work. But I certainly still had that vision of people just vomiting nonstop from the moment the stuff touches your lips until like hours later, like vomit. And so there was that. And so that wasn't very appealing to me. And the other thing is I had the idea that, psychedelics essentially, like, again, I was going to kind of like freak out as soon as I ingested this stuff. And I kind of traded it with, there are people that I know and Marci's there and et cetera, I'll be well taken care of, but I'm probably going to like freak out and I'll be really scared. And it was completely the opposite of all that. Yeah.
Thank you. And when I speak to how, like, we did a lot of encoding for Bliss and ease, and we learned to work with the medicine that when something comes up, we move it and it can be purged out, or we can transmute it and you don't even have to purge. There's so many options available, but it's all the only story most people hear. I remember the first time when I was heading down for my very first time, and I just knew I was called to it, and I didn't have that much awareness around all the aspects. And this guy was like, "Oh, I'll hold your hair back for you." And I was like, what does that even mean? It's like, and this idea that you're just going to be purging and vomiting and And, as I was saying before, of how, when so many people have massive transformational experiences, and so many people that I work with are like, wow, that was easy. That was bliss. Our whole group, your whole group experienced, like, everyone was having huge, massive transformations with bliss and ease. And I remember so many times looking over at you and you're just like, like receiving information and being recoded and, having a few purges, but you were just like in bliss. And you were, so it's like, it's all available, but we do get to allow going to the depths of what is in our system that wants to be moved, so that we can open to the higher vibrations and levels of consciousness. And that's one thing that I've been fascinated about. And I love that you're such a good example of, is in all of our play together, through all of our coaching and everything else. Once you came back from Colombia, you're like, I just feel like I finally get it. And I scratched the surface. And now I'm like the fucking multidimensionality and your gifts coming online and even more, right? So much awareness, like seeing through the illusions of life and operating from this higher vibrational place, which again is why, as I was saying with the documentary, I didn't even finish that because sometimes I can go everywhere. The beloved that had, she had just done a huge documentary, and she was like, I now really feel called to do a documentary on how some of the highest level beings that are serving humanity, they utilize these medicines, these sacred sacraments, to open their consciousness, to awaken their gifts, their multidimensionality, their mysticism, our ability to play with energy which is your ability to manifest everything you desire and to live at this imprinting of, I am God. All things are God. There is no separation. I am source. And so many people talk about psychedelics and plant medicines and these clairvoyant, visionary medicines as connecting to source. And we always say and maybe you can bring some voice to this, how it's like, so like your human before was like, oh, all these details. What about this? Like, even for us, we climbed down into the jungle and it's like, I got to go down this big old hill. And you had, the moment you feel the call to the medicine, you say, I'm doing this. All these things already start to come up. This is why we start doing processing with what the human can find prior, so that when you get into this space, it's like you've removed everything out of the way that you're aware of, so that the medicine can work with your soul to be able to access what you have not been aware of, what you've been suppressing so deeply, or is deeply in the epigenetics of the DNA in your system that's creating stagnation and taking up space and holding on to beliefs and patterns and programs, so that comes out. But yet you still always, what's fascinating to me is you still always find a way to, like, we set our intentions. We're very intentional about everything, from the space to the medicine clean to the people there, everything. Like, we're in a Garden of Eden. So you have space to go be with the medicine and have conversation and release and do all the things. And how there's this, it's always fascinating to me to witness how, like, such the evolution and massive change of accessing all these things that they are still what we put intentions towards. So it's like we have an intention and we release it. Your human's like, well, I really want to feel amazing and I want to, know my self-worth and I want to just be in bliss and happiness and abundance and all this stuff. And yet what comes up can look like it has nothing to do with that, but then it always ends up leading to that. Like your struggles with the body got completely recoded. I don't even know if you had that as an intention, but it's like then all these mystical gifts and abilities and things came up. So it's like, what I want people to hear, and maybe you can speak to this, is that this is why I feel like I can do all my Jedi stuff. We coach and we process, we do all the things, right? And yet when it comes to medicine, I'm not fucking responsible for anything, because I know the soul is in charge and the medicine's in charge of bringing together what is the highest alignment for you. So that it's like we all step out of the way, and what's of our highest self divinity is wanting to be accessed for us gets accessed. And then I'm there just in the, let's integrate, let's process this, let's move, let's be aware of what parts are the human so that we can move through this. But it's like it's not even, you said this well when you said it's about us and it's not about us. So maybe you can clarify that and what your experience was with that.
Yeah. So one of my biggest things that came up is in the preparation for this trip. We were told that, like, look, there's a path down the hill into the space, and it's a bit rocky. It's a bit, not so bad, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. So, I should mention, I tend to forget this a little bit, is that my flight down there was delayed by a day because the plane had a mechanical failure or something. And that was my birthday that I was flying in on originally. And I had to completely surrender to this experience of, like, end up coming down there essentially alone, or not alone, by myself. I had amazing support, but without the group. So there was that final piece of, like, I had felt so alone, and, like, releasing that part of myself, like, sort of one last time.
Yep.
And
up for you to face, even in moving forward, to experience what was the release on the other side. That's what's important here, is like everything that we want is on the other side, but the things will come up. And this is why most people go, oh, not right now. Oh, down the road. Oh, later. Oh, when I work this out, when I'm this, when I'm that, I can't now because, and yet it's like, it's coming up so that you actually face it and lean into it in a new response to be able to have what you received. And you said you thought about, fuck this, like, maybe I should just fly back home, coming in later. We had drivers pick you up, obviously, that were going to support you. They drove you down to where we'd all headed down to the jungle. And you came in at night, coming down this steep hill, and you said several times, there was like, fuck this, maybe I should just turn around and go. And yet you leaned into that and breathed through it and moved through it a moment at a time and made your way down into the jungle, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, it's not just a little bit of a hill and just a little rocky. It's tough.
Like
It's a tough
you
one.
should have a backpack instead of a suitcase if you can, but we'll take care of
Right.
it. So we'll work it out. But yeah.
Yep. Yep. And, yeah. And it's more challenging at night. And yeah. And I had these two amazing men supporting me and carrying my bag and all the things. And then there was another, this is all related to the body and all of this stuff. Yeah. I did not, this was not one of the things I was focused on, was like thinking about my body. But, it was like, I shed one kind of layer of body, like discomfort and just like being in disconnection with my body and fighting my body. I shed one layer of that when I finally made it down the hill. And then there was one day where we all went, it was an integration day, and we went back up and then back down again. And I think it was kind of that time where I finally kind of just released so much struggle, because well, we had been through a few days of ceremony at that point and all the things. But yeah, but so the physical challenge of being there, and being there in a body that is a large body, and I kind of way fast forward to, a week or so after the trip, and I saw pictures of myself tagged, online, like full body shots of me, which I haven't done for years and years because I felt disconnected from my body. But again, was not consciously thinking about this before the trip. So this is all stuff that came up and was like this amazing release. But yeah, I came to a place where I was like, wow, I'm so grateful that other people that are considering, or that would maybe not even consider this trip because, I'm too big, I'll never make it down the mountain. Like this is, it's too physically challenging for me. It's too whatever it is, or, just that, that it's too uncomfortable. Like the whole experience is too uncomfortable, whatever it is. Like I came to a place where I was so grateful that other people could see and to look at me in this body as I am now and say, oh, okay, well, if she can do it, then, I can do that. I don't have to let this part hold me back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember witnessing and seeing a big shift in you when we did have that integration day. And so we were climbing up the mountain, and just how you're just like, you were just so more at peace. You're just like, it doesn't matter how long it takes me, a step at a time, I'm doing my thing. And there was like, really, and even to speak to vulnerably, like, guys, this would have been so shameful for me in the past. It would have been something I was embarrassed about. Like, think I was holding anyone up or any of these ideas. And we're just like, this is just me being in this body experience, and I'm at perfect peace, and I'm moving a step at a time. And then to have you have all this recoding, like I remember one of the integration, as we integrate and process and talk about everything that comes up and moving through so that we're clear to be able to receive more. And you're just like, I had these light beings just literally go through my whole system and tell me, this is how this works. Like, this is actually how you're designed to breathe. And this is how this works. And literally recoded my system. And you were just a completely different being with your body. And I think it was, after you were even just like, I realized like I shed like 40 pounds, and that was just easy. And now I'm just like, oh, when I choose now to be in peace with my divine blueprint, to be whatever it is that I want it to be, I get to allow myself to just be experiencing that. And that's really kind of where you've been since, is just like choosing now, like for the first time ever, I get to be fit and healthy, and this feels good. And I love my body, and I love to move my body, and just like none of that struggle or that suffering is there. And that's, I think, gosh, I don't know anyone who's never dealt with some sort of shaming or ideas or judgments about our own bodies. Again, this is such a deep part of our programming that is, we take on from not only in our epigenetics, but from birth, as to how all the programming that we're supposed to look a certain way, and that we and it's not safe to until, and that's such a big part of the I can't until. I even had levels and layers of that for many times, where it's like, oh, I want to feel good in my body, I got to look this way, to be able to do these things, or to be able this. And you just fucking let that all go, my love. And you're such a beautiful example of that what we want, we get to lean into and be the vibration, be the person doing those actions now, to have that as our experience. Because if you would have let even those thoughts keep you from this, and that's just one aspect, all the many things you're experiencing. It's like, can you imagine? For me, every time I'm like, I can't imagine not getting everything that I received, like how much that catapulted my life into the next layer and level. And if I would have let any excuses or stories, and it comes up almost with everyone, is that there's like, well, because stuff comes up before to make you triggering all those comfort zones. So it's like, oh, maybe it's just not the right time, or maybe down the road, etc. It's like, yeah, your stuff's coming up. Whatever's coming up is your shit that you get to look at and lean into now, and start alchemizing and moving through, and trusting that, you're fully safe, supported. We have all these things in alignment. It's just, taking those steps. And it's every blue moon that will have one person. I mean, I think I've only had like 2, maybe 3 people out of all the many years that I've taken people down there that last minute pulled out. And, it was like, and then afterwards, like, it was just the fears of like, like one woman like pulled out because she was like physically thought, she was older and she wasn't going to be able to do things. It's like, we'll carry you down the fucking mountain, like allow yourself to get there and experience it. And don't let these silly human thoughts get in the way. So those were some big ones for you. Were there any other ones that, I mean, you obviously, we'd been working together a while, and you knew that I had the whole formula and had done it for many years. But was there any other concerns that you had, or fears that came up for you in working with it? Other than obviously you thought you'd be purging nonstop, which you like, all right, this might be uncomfortable, but I trust Marci's there and all these things, and okay. Right. And what was your experience compared to the purging then? What you thought it would be? Maybe that's really insightful.
Yeah. So I purged once, and it was on the last day. And I will share that specific thing, but the rest of it was so kind and gentle. And what I realized very quickly is that this was me giving myself an opportunity to be kind and gentle to myself, to speak differently to myself. It was, I believe it was the first day that, so yeah, when you said a few minutes earlier, you would look over at me, and I was like, that's basically me like meditating in a, perfect meditative still position. I think there was one day, maybe the third day, that I think I didn't move for like 5 straight hours. I was just like in one position. Yeah. But the experience was like, that the first day, I believe, was when it was this like learning experience about my body. And it was like, these are your stomach muscles. This is where your lungs are. So like, you don't have to hold your breath, for example, when you're tightening your abs. And that sounds kind of silly, but it's like things like that, where it was just this, like, this is how your body works. This is how your legs are strong, and and all of these things that just gave me back myself, and gave me, I mean, and the rest of the time was like that. It was gentle. It was like being taught by like the most gentle, wise teacher the whole time. It was so beautiful. Yeah. And even the purging on the last day, one of the things that you talk about a lot is that grandmother is funny.
Funny.
Very funny.
We're referring to grandmother ayahuasca, abuelita. So we call her grandmother, abuelita. Yes.
Yeah. So on the last day, we always set our intention. What is it that, what do we want to ask the medicine? And it was something around, you know, we had done like an abundance ceremony the day before, and I kind of reconnected to that, just like, being aware of the abundance of the universe, something along those lines. Well, about 20 minutes after, that's the other thing. It doesn't hit you right away. So anybody that was one fear that I had, that it would hit me right away.
You out of control and freaking out.
Yeah, no, not
Instead
at
of,
all.
we learn how to be very in control and surrender and play with the medicine the whole time. Yes.
Totally. Yeah. So, yeah, I took it, and about 20 minutes later, it was like I got what I asked for, which was, it was like I was given the keys to the universe, and I saw how, like, the true nature of reality, and it and it kind of freaked me out. I wasn't freaking out. It was really like being shown, like, I mean, it was beautiful, and it was like, whoa. And that's when I ended up purging. So just the one time. But then after that, what I knew and was told and received was that was the end of any need you ever have to suffer.
Yeah.
That was your end of suffering. That was it. You've just released it.
Yeah.
And from that moment,
body, that was the program of suffering, right?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And from that moment, I have not suffered. I've experienced pain, of course, but I haven't suffered. And so much of that I credit to, like, that's why I came back. And first of all, yeah, that I lost 20 plus pounds in the, just that in those like 5 days. Also that, from the get-go, from immediately when I came back, it was like a completely new relationship with my body, because I don't need to suffer with this anymore.
Yeah.
So it's all changed. Yeah.
Yeah, love. Wow. That is such a powerful, potent example. Not only sharing that it doesn't have to be suffering in the experience. It's like, there's nothing to fight. We're actually coming into sweet connection with source, with God, with all that we are, and all. So again, the reality of, like, where you see through the illusions, and all of a sudden, when you've seen that and when you've experienced it, and this is why I'm such a proponent for experiential training, because I can process you night and day, and we can do tons of, okay, go do this emotional expression work. And we catch the things like, okay, what are we going to integrate now and implement? And how are we changing the actions, behaviors, and what's the healing we're doing, timeline shifts, all these things. And there's tons of fucking Jedi, multidimensional, amazing magic that we do. And yet, once your soul and you have this imprinting of seeing beyond all illusion, like you said, that any story you ever would have bought into in the past that suffering was real is actually, oh, I can see beyond the illusion of my divine, creation and everything with that, the co-creation, my highest self-conscious, what I learned, what I chose to experience, all my gifts, my capacity, everything. How could I ever, deny that or blame or shame or judge that or buy into the story that's here, when I can see beyond the illusion behind it, and the abundance is everywhere and in everything. And I literally, it's all available to me. So I no longer have to choose suffering. And that's such it's an imprinting experience. Now, most people, let's say when people experience medicine and they might have like some of these awakening moments or source conscious moments, a lot of people don't know how to decipher between like the stories or the stuff that's being purged and the things that they feel intensely in their system, or they don't have a reference point for it. Why did I see this? What's this? And they can't make sense of it because the ego is trying to literally, the ego can cut out 80% of what the vision and the gifts are that you're seeing, and try to bring validation into it, which then just kind of fucks people up because they don't know how to move forward with it or how to integrate something different. We obviously are doing all that processing and that moving through the experience, but then most people will come out of an experience, and even if they had moments of this high level awakening or vision or feeling of connecting to sources as self, and like, oh, I see it and I get it. I mean, I see so many people go back to the same old because, again, they don't know how to integrate something new in. you know, and so you did get to come back. And what I will say that is the most common experience for people is that they come out of those kind of experiences. And I'm talking about even people that work with me, and all of a sudden they feel like, oh my gosh, like we all references like, oh my gosh, the jungle, we're like high vibrational in heaven and light and da 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 da. And we're like experiencing our bliss, and we're having these new codes, sound and light codes come into our being, and you know, releasing the things that are lower vibrational. And so we're just like, ah, and then you come back into your daily life. And this is where I'm like, guys, this is the home stretch. This is a part of the formula that you get to integrate these new imprintings. Now you're going to see what in life were you not even fucking aware of, that you were tolerating, that you were creating, etc. So what most people experience is they go out of the jungle or out of our experiences, and they feel a heavy density. And they're like, fuck, I just want to go back to the jungle. It's like, no, actually, the reason why you're feeling such heavier density is because you're so much more attuned to light. You have a higher vibrational frequency. You can feel energy so much more sensitively, that you now, the things that you didn't even feel before, that you just tolerated and were operating, you're now, you're so alert to. You're alert to, you feel them, and you're like, holy shit, that does not feel good. And instead of, you know, oh, it didn't really bother me before, you're like, huh. And it's where it's being called forth to. Now these human patterns, behaviors, ideas, thoughts, expectations, attachments, all the things that were being released from a energetic space in your body. Now you get to align your life with the patterns and the new patterns, behaviors, beliefs. So for you, even like bliss, like where before you couldn't attune to bliss, now you're like, oh, there is no more suffering. So now how am I operating in life? Now you've chosen to step into operating with your body in a way of bliss. You didn't choose an old pattern because you're like, wait, I know this now. So wow, any other old thoughts or ideas or ways that I used to do it don't feel good anymore. What am I calling myself now to believe about my body, to experience with my body, with your business, with abundance, with everything? Like you get to integrate it into your life. So that is normal to feel a heavier density, but it's not to be like, oh, it's only good when I'm on medicine. It's like, no, that's giving you the imprinting of what you are aligned, like what your divinity is aligned to, that you can bring that existence into your everyday life and way of being, that all these things get to transmute, that now you're like, oh, now I can experience this level of bliss in my human life. And guess what? It can only get greater. It can only get greater as you continue to do the human processing and move through all the other things as well. So you were one of those that I saw. I mean, I remember doing, you know, obviously we had our integration calls after with everyone, and you know, everyone's got audios from me of learning how to integrate and all those things too. And I remember doing an extra audio because I could see most of the group, I'd say 9 out of 10 of them, because you were the 10th, we're all like, what the fuck? And I was like, guys, let me just speak to this. This is normal. This is because you got to come. Now you're not in this sacred bubble of heaven, just experiencing your awakening and awareness and just all this. You get to bring that into life. That's what you're integrating. This is the part. You're like, this is also available. And I want people to hear that this is also available. What you experienced, you came out and you're like, oh, like everything is amazing, like glorious. You know, you're like, I need to change my name because I'm glorious. What name represents my glory? You know, it's like you were feeling that, you know, and I know, you know, you've had some experiences too, that again, we as the human, we get to experience all aspects of ourselves, but those came up and you chose to respond to them without the old stories, etc., to bring them to a higher light. That's why you said, I no longer have to experience things with suffering. And that is a choice always. Like we can learn, and this is why I say this, and I think a lot of people, I hear it sometimes as people are working with me for a while, I swear you said this at one time too, where it's like, you said this over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden one day it clicks and the code lands and you get it and you're like, oh, I get it. So I say this and a lot of people are like, can't relate to it, where I'm like, suffering is a choice. You are here to learn all aspects of your being, all parts of you being God, human, multidimensional, every pattern behavior is all, we have all of them. And we can align them all to a acidic state and frequency of operating from the highest vibration and creating results and manifesting for the greater good, or we can experience them at a shadow state, which is like creating suffering and pain. But we get to choose, do I want to learn through hardship, struggle, suffering, pain, trauma, blah, blah, or do I want to learn through joy and bliss and connection and unity and wholeness and peace and ease and grace and play? They're both available. And so many times people are like, I don't get it until you get it. Like you are, you're like, oh, I get it. It's up to me to choose this path or this path. And it's all available for my learning. Which one do I want to choose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that relates, I think, really well to this. I have a couple different things. I'm like,
yeah, you could just go like
say it all. So if you remember, the day before we went down for our first ceremony, or like the hour before, literally, we were all sitting around the table, and I was relaying that I at this point was still kind of checked out of the experience. I was essentially like, I'm here, obviously, and physically I'm here, and I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to do this. But like, I could really feel I was not in it. I was not fully there. I wasn't really wanting to do it. I was still had the ideas and stories about what this was going to be like, of course. And so in my head, it was like, this is going to be hard, and I'm going to do it, and whatever. So such a strange thing to think about now, but so because, and I'm talking about this because you said I can learn through suffering and hardship and struggle, or I can learn through bliss and joy and curiosity and all the things. So we got down there, and you opened the ceremony by really reminding us that how beautiful it was that we were from, different parts of the world, and that we get to, after this experience, get to go home to our places and like really be the light, be the change, be the, bring a new level of consciousness and awareness to where we are from and all the people that we work with, et cetera. And it was at that point that was the reminder of like what this is really about for me. And that's when I think I said out loud, okay, I've landed. I'm actually here now.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And just to give people some context is that, so one of my abilities now, and I channel and work with a lot of light beings, and they told me that I have access to open portals beyond 13th dimensional consciousness, which is consciousness that has not even been given to the humanity. And so they're like, when we're in ceremonial space, I'm downloading new sound and light codes that come through, and every single person, they were like, every single person there, you've seen me, how it's like each person I'm pulling aside, or we're doing integration work because I get visions for them and all these things and little aspects of what they get to hear and know that they can process and move through things. And they said, they're receiving these new sound and light codes that are coming through no matter what. So then each one of these people, that when they go home, they said even women transmit it 14 times the capacity, because we have more ability to hold light in ourselves, and then men transmit it 7 times capacity. And that's one aspect that they're like, this is why those beings that are here in ceremony with you are literally changing the planet, because you transmit it to everyone you interact with. And then other people, and again, from your example, from all the things from your vibration of being, it's like you transmit these new codes that then humanity receives. So then one other aspect, they had given me direction to have us connect with the sentinels of the planet. They said, when you're in South America and you connect, you're going to be bringing, and then when I go back to the States, obviously I'm in the States right now, they're like, you're going to be bringing, Bali will be connected to South America, and it'll be bringing the higher spiritual frequencies. South America will be connected to Bali and be bringing some of the stronger, like tribal frequencies and energies. Then they're both going to be connected to the States, and this is going to create an isosceles triangle. And they're like, everywhere you go, this is why I've been called all over the world, working with medicines and immersions and enlightened masters and doing all the things I've been called to. And every single time I knew I was gridding the planet. I was bringing these sacred lines, these energetic frequencies to connect. And when they showed me there, and I was like, wow, I just had gotten that hit where I was like, wow, this is why all of you guys are such an important piece of this. You guys are connecting to the grid line here and all the sacred work that we've done there for so many years. And you're taking those frequencies back to, you're in Boston, right? And then there's, we had people in Puerto Rico and people from the UK and from all over the world. And it's like, we're all taking these frequencies and we're connecting them. And I just want to bring this in that with the New Earth community land that I'm building in Bali, I was shown, again, led specifically to this sacred land. And they were like, when you encode this area, they even showed me like 11 light beings that will be standing as guardians around this land. And they said, when you encode this land, the newer frequencies, the higher levels of sound and light codes will come down into this land. It will transmit out into Bali, which is one of the new earth birthing places for the planet. And it's going to be feeding Bali, and then Bali will feed the rest of the planet. And it's like, there's so much more multidimensionally happening for the greater good of humanity. And this is your point, is that it's like, it's not just about you, it's also about humanity. And I remember that moment, like when I just felt called to share with you guys what was actually happening, and that you guys were going to be taking these codes and doing this. You landed and you were like, now I get why I'm here. And it was just like this shift where you're like, cool, let's do this. And again, you were like receiving so much of those codes and those frequencies through the entire experience. But I think that's so important, and you spoke to it a bit before, and I'd love you to share more in this, where it's like, not only we go for our own, okay, I am worthy of living my ultimate divine experience of life. I'm here as a human and a multidimensional being. We can only give ourselves permission to have our greatest life adventure and be in lovership with all of life, be in that bliss and that play of like, as God, all things are available and all things are me. And there is no resistance to anything. And there's just neutrality and love with everything. There is wholeness, there's oneness, there's unity. And that, of course, is some of the higher light codes of consciousness that we awaken to. And from your human level, you're like, I really want to, I don't know why I do a funny human voice, but it's like, I want to have all the money and the clients with ease. And I want to feel good in my body. And I want to have the epic relationship. And we want all the human things. And even though our highest self is, and the light beings have said this to me so many times, and I've shared this transmission, is that, what your soul truly seeks and desires is your self-realization. And that even though our human is like, again, I refer to my wholeness and my human many times. I'm like, my wholeness is aware of this. My human's aware of this, because I'm both and I'm experiencing both. My human can have all these thoughts and ideas, and I can witness all these things and see what's being transmuted. And my wholeness is like, yeah, I see it all up here. It's all good, babe. Like, this is really what's true. And, and so you go for yourself, because again, you are the purpose. If you're in your awakening and alignment and ascension, you create the life that you absolutely want and desire, which is your divinity. It's your divine birthright. And as I want you to speak a bit more to this, it's so much more than you. It's like, this is about me and it's not about me, because again, it's about the all. It's about me being a part of the all, and you being someone that leads and guides coaches and people that are changing a lot of humanity. How did you feel like why that became like a connection for you of like, this is why we do this, not just, well, I know I want to have, more abundance or whatever it is. It's like, yeah, that's all available because you're worthy of all that. And what else has it led and guided you to that you weren't really even aware of from the human perspective?
Yeah, I think that has been the key. And it's been the key to frankly why I've gone through some, shit over the past couple months since we've been back, but I haven't suffered, and why I've essentially been able to remain like, wow, the density is dense, but I'm, I'm doing it.
It's dense, but hey, it's asking us to alchemize it.
Yeah. It's because I had this realization that and I'll just back up a little bit and say that for me, one of the requirements for when I think of, myself as a coach and then as a master coach coaching other coaches, is it's a requirement to be able to like expand my capacity to see. And it's for them, because what's the point of having a coach if you're if your coach, it's not that I need to be ahead of people. I don't see it that way, but I do see it as being able to see more and more and more, more clearly, with more like awareness, more perception, all the things. And and so there's so many ways to push ourselves outside of our comfort zones, or not even push, just like go outside of our comfort zones. And even to surrender and drop the ego and all of those things. There are many, many ways to do that. And I'm here for all of them.
Yep.
And there's something about plant medicine that it's for us in all those ways. And yet it's not about us at all.
Yep.
It's at all, because what we realize in those moments is that we are intimately connected with all of humanity and the planet at all times, in every single moment. So anything that I do, and as a coach, everything that I do, it impacts my clients essentially directly. And I don't see that as a responsibility, as in like a burden. I see it as like a massive opportunity. So it's like, that's the driver. And how am I going to, have all the abundance and wealth and all the things if I'm not doing something that's like extraordinarily highly valuable? So, that's how I want to experience abundance, is with like an abundance of connection and like intimate connection to all of humanity, and like expanding consciousness worldwide, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's not, that part's fun, to like see stuff about, to be sitting there for 5 hours and get, here's everything about you, Phyllis. But then if it's without that connection to what I'm really doing here, it's not so, it's only temporary. But now this is permanent. This has completely shifted my reality and how I choose to be in the world. So, and that's just the beginning. That was just the beginning.
You've evolved so much and catapulted as you've integrated that and moved on. It reminds me of, I think this was after you came back, and how, or in the ending experience of how you had this click where I think it was in our integration calls after with the whole group, and how you said before, if you were like, well, what can I do? There's these things suffering happening across the world, and, not like I can, do anything about it. And you're like, now I get it. Like, I can just sit here and go into sending out love. And again, that's one of the greatest manifestation tools I teach, is that, again, because we're from this frequency of I am whole, I am, there is nothing lacking or limiting from me. I am fulfilled. I am satisfied. I'm whole. I'm going to send out my love. I'm literally in also receiving that. It's like, whatever I focus on and create is I receive the manifestation of, because I'm coming from a place of not lacking. I'm coming from a place of full and whole and satisfied. And so you're like, oh, I get it now. I can change these aspects of the planet by just bringing my vibration to them. And that awareness that you're that powerful and that you can do that. And how, if all of us are operating from this place of how we are making a difference and connected to everything. And I want to even say that from this knowing of yourself that you are connected to everything, also you're not separate from the infinite support systems, and I call it the infinite storehouse and warehouse of abundance, the supply of abundance that's available everywhere. When you say, oh, I'm separate from this, I'm separate from that, I can only do this amount, I only have this ability, we're literally buying and believing into this illusion that says, I can only have so much. I can only receive so much connection and joy, etc. So that's even a huge, powerful point of how, in that one small shift, how you're changing and affecting humanity. you also spoke to how it's like, and I mean, we can probably play with this in our experience, right? As mentor, coachee, like our beautiful family relationship of play in that realm. How when you message me and you're like, any insights? And I'm like, I'm like, let me just tune in for a moment. And all of a sudden your guides and light beings are giving me messages and I'm feeling into your system. And it's like, I couldn't have done any of that before. You know, if I was just using my human brain and just did the kind of, this is how typical coaching, like help people go, well, what do you know? I don't know. Well, what do you know? And like the typical, let me just walk you through mindset shifts and perceptions instead of what's really happening in the system, the layers after layers after layers these are connected to. And all that's available. And most of, I mean, in what I do now, it's just like, it's all super fucking multidimensional, that, and you're like, it was like, you couldn't quite receive it all before Columbia, right? You were like, so much of what you were teaching me, I just couldn't quite connect to. You were doing tons of, expansion in all the ways. But as you said, a lot of it kind of connected more to your human daily life living, etc. And once Columbia happened and you were just opened up to all of this access levels of consciousness, multidimensionality and mysticism and all these other awarenesses, you're just like, wow, it's like, now I feel like we just started, like it's fucking on, like, all these things that you were speaking to, I finally get and I'm receiving and coding in and doing that. So it is why I know I get to continue to expand. It's like, it only gives me more abilities, not more abilities that serves me and humanity, more abilities that gives me access. And so even our sensitivity and energy, becoming an energy Jedi was what I learned in working with medicine and learning how to alchemize and transmute things. And then again, it got to be ease and grace because we don't have to grow and evolve through suffering. One of the messages they gave us that I shared with your group was that intensity does not have to be hard. Intensity just means quantum leaping transformation. We have an intense focused space of like massive transformation, and we can experience it with bliss and ease and grace. And that was overall what I think most everyone that went in your group was like, wow, that was bliss and ease and grace. And I had no idea that I could experience this evolution. Human program, change is hard, change is suffering. Yep. Bullshit. Staying where you're at is hard and suffering. Staying in the comfort zone is suffering. Now you're experiencing a whole other level of that. And so it is for us, about us, and not all at the same time, because we are all of it. Yep. Yeah. And so it's like, I love that you bringing in the aspect of that is, in a way, it is our call, our responsibility, not in a suffering responsibility. It is like, my self-realization is my responsibility. And that means what I bring to the planet as a part of what I chose to be here, a part of with everything, that is a call forth of, can I follow that of where I'm being called to go to continue to expand myself? And this is what's so fascinating and available. It reminds me of, you spoke to, the experience of how it's like so much more is available. And I'm like, when I got called, you've heard this story, and if anyone, I think I shared it on my original Marcis on Medicine series, but when I got called to support clients at $1 million level, that all came to me in the jungle. And my human brain would have been like, what? No, like I can't charge that. And I'm not, da, 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 da. And it was a calling forth of, this is what you get to, the people that you get to work with, because it will take that level of investment in themselves for them to move through their shit and serve humanity in the degree that they're meant to serve humanity. And it was never about the money. It was never a human going, I would like to make more money. It was like, hey, your soul, you get to expand into being seen and heard and fully, express more and sharing more. And these are the people that are going to change humanity the most, that you're supposed to guide through their stuff to be able to do this. It was like, so it's like, it calls you forth to have greater expansion in every aspect from your human life to also, in the ways that we get to serve. And yeah, that's such a beautiful, important, potent point. I appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah. How have you felt like that shifted with you since in your abilities with your clients and what you're able to see and access now?
Yeah, it's been massive. And I actually had one of my clients, I think it was the first call after I returned from the jungle that I had with her. And I shared with her the, Bliss is my baseline.
Mhm.
And it was like maybe the next day or something, she came back with, and, we had kind of a normal call up until then.
Mhm.
And then, she messaged me like the next day and she's like, oh my God, like I have never experienced this like level of bliss. Like bliss is my baseline. This is phenomenal.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah,
So you
there's
transferred
a
that code right away. You
totally right.
transferred
Yeah.
availability to tap into that code already for whoever you were interacting with.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And and that I did not do intentionally. That I wasn't giving her that. And because in my mind, I need to explain things. I need to teach things in order for
Right? That's what it's like going
um,
too. It's like, oh, it's already happening energetically. I already encoded it and boom, it's done. Yep.
yes, yes. And so that I've noticed has been a massive shift, is this that what happens off the calls
Mhm.
is like massively upgraded. It
Yeah.
also, because it's without sharing anything. It's all energetic and I can feel it,
Mhm.
and to a degree that I have never felt before. And yeah, I'm just beginning to kind of to harness that, like becoming aware of, ooh, this is happening, or this is happening with me. And then, I hear from a client 2 hours later, like, oh, and they express something that's going on that I'm like, wow, this is an exact mirror of what I was just experiencing and processing through myself.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, being able to pick up on that stuff is huge. And that, again, like I'm just at the beginning with this. And yet I've always known that this is the this constant expansion, and like that it's so necessary for doing any kind of coaching that's beyond that, like what you were
Standard
saying before.
self-empowerment. That's what I
Yeah.
surface self-empowerment. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it's just like, this is how you do this. And oh, this problem comes up. Let's solve the problem. Just that kind of thing. We
Mhm.
can't go beyond that if we're not like, we can't go beyond that if we're just doing kind of the same thing and like living our day-to-day lives and not really
That's
putting
such a
ourselves.
box of what we think the illusion is. And that's
Yeah.
also what's fascinating when you come back home. Maybe you saw this. I know you were kind of like the 1 out of the 10 that was like, oh, but it's where I mean, when I come back to the States, I'm like, holy shit, this is what people believe. This is the
Yeah.
box they live in. This is as big as they think the world gets and their experience gets to be and what's available. And I'm just like, I just continue to be in fascination, awe, and give love and gratitude that I have a greater awareness and I can be an example of other ways of being human. As many people that are in my retreats are always like, you gave me whole new evidence of ways to be human, to experience magic in everything, lovership with everything, and play with everything, and fun and joy and ease and grace and all these things. And it's like, so you come back to the collective and you're like, whoa, oh my gosh. And then you begin living in the new code for so long and as your way of being, that it is like you forget that it exists. It is
Mhm.
sometimes, I'm like, the light beings say to me, you get to experience this. Like I'm in the States right now. So I'm close to my boys and running some retreats stateside so that people can hear on this side can have this experience. And I'm like, it's like, I'm like, this reminds me what it's like to be human, because my level of human experience is much different. And yet I remember from my way past experience, oh yeah, I used to live in that box. And I used to believe that life was hard and a struggle and suffering. And I had to show up the way that people wanted me to. And I looked for validation outside myself and permission outside myself and blah, 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 blah. Holy fuck, that's exhausting. That's exhausting. And no wonder nobody can function, because they're operating all like all quirked up energetically and with ideas and programs and all these things, dense, like we like to say, density is dense. Wow. Yeah. The density is dense, but we're alchemizing it, right? We get to alchemize it. So yeah, and I want to speak to how, I mean, so other people might choose a perception around those gifts and those abilities, and can be like a lot. I see this so many times with healers, teachers, coaches, mentors, because I coach a lot of I swear I mentor the mentors and coach a lot of the coaches. And most of the time it's like, there's this idea that if they're sensitive, it's hard. Like, or they buy into ideas that energy, oh, it's hard for me to go out because of energy. It's hard for me to It's like, no, that's my fucking superpower. And as you've learned, you found those edges that felt like why you were staying in more of a bubble because of the energy sensitivity, et cetera, instead of like how now you can create connecting to the coolest conscious communities and most amazing light beings and the most amazing clients and all this, because it's all available, because you're in discernment. The energy tells you everything that's going on. And it gives you those superpowers, like you said, where you can, and I've seen the evolutions of this in my own experience with when I first started coaching. And it's like, and as I would, the more I expanded, someone would ask me a question that they wanted to go here, and everything was telling me to go the opposite direction. And it was through going the opposite direction that we found everything that was connected to where they wanted to go. But if I was using my human brain, it was not available. It's like the energy and the guidance and the awareness and that the subtleties of those things that lead you to that. And I already know that you have, you've already always had, like I've said, you've had visionary capacity and so many gifts and abilities. And I've just seen that massively explode since through this last portal of you getting to work with these sacred sacraments and getting this coding. It's like, whoo, you're just like, you're so much more now. And now you're like, yeah, connecting with light beings and doing all these other things. You're like, I would have never said that before. I would have thought that was really crazy. And now you just have information being downloaded into your system and accessed because you're open for it. And you're at a higher vibration that's ready and in attunement to be able to receive that and then implement that in your life and all the people that you're supporting as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And reminds me I think it was the first day that I'm sure it was, that I got all this kind of instruction about my body. The way that I started that was just asking, like, asking questions about remembering, like, it was all that kind of like spiritual bypassy stuff that we as spiritual, coaches tend to do. I didn't call it that or think of it at the time, but it kind of was. So I was asking questions about like remembering my divinity and stuff like that and all of that. And the teachings that I got immediately were like, yes, you're divine. Here you are. Here's God. Here's this, here's that. This is like grandmother being funny again. Like, yes, you're so wise. Yes, you're not, whatever. And then, and it was like and at some point I just started laughing. I was like, what is this? And I just heard this, you're asking the wrong questions, Phyllis. Like, this is not you being like, how am I going to be rich and an abundant goddess? Or like, this is not where you're going to get the answers that are actually going to serve you and, expand your consciousness. So like looking in that direction, kind of looking for, looking for an escape in some way. And, no wonder why people look for like, that we're asking those questions when we're so used to being in the density, in that bubble of like, this is how life is. And of course we want an escape. Of course we want an escape to the jungle. Of course we want to talk about being like a divine, abundant goddess and whatever. And it's like, yes, you are that. And here's the brass tacks of it. Let me show you the other direction that you really, is really going to give you actually everything that it is that you want.
Yeah.
So
Amazing. What were some of those other, what would you say? Cause I know there's so many. This is the challenge about, even as we share as much as we can, it's like, I mean, I always have you guys record right after, and that we're receiving all the messages, but it's like, I'm like in one ceremony experience, I feel like so much happens. It's just, can I track all the direction I was given that, oh my gosh, catapults me in so many ways, in business and everything else, like all the things that I get to go take action on this and integrate this. And, oh, I had this awareness and and this moved out of my body, blah, blah, blah. It's like, if you can, what would you say are some of the most potent, and powerful breakthroughs or revelations or experiences for you in that you took away that you could maybe share?
Oh, yeah.
The challenging question, like, can I break it down to a few specifics versus
yeah.
I know.
There's something about, it's connection, like connection to the past, connection to, and I mean, people, like, and just humanity. This idea of being always supported.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and that's something that you say a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
it can be kind of one of those things that's like, yeah, always supported. But
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the most significant and meaningful experiences for me, was the connection to and the support of the people, including you and everybody that was there. And the family that runs this retreat center, but also these, like, I connected to ancestors. Not of my own lineage of like that land. I connected to ancestors of different realms,
Yeah.
and and I connected to beings that I was never a light being kind of person, but I connected to beings that are, not of this earth. And I felt, and like future versions of myself, future versions of my family, and it was this profound experience of like, we're always supported because we're really always supported. We are connected to every person.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just so life-changing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's no you trying to convince yourself, like you said, in the surface self-empowerment, like, if I'm like, you're effortlessly supported, like there's infinite abundance, everything, you're always supported. It's like, yeah, nice mantra, I'm supported. Now you're like, you're like, I get it, I am supported, and you believe it and you feel it, and it's like, how could I ever deny? And I know there's there's an abundance of ideas and possibilities and all things. I am effortlessly supported, and you see all the magic and miracles and the gifts of how you are supported, versus you weren't seeing them or having access to them because you were denying it by looking through a lens, the wrong questions, right? As to like, how do I not have enough? I don't have enough of this. I have an expectation here, an attachment, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. That imprinting with the body vessel, and how that's shifted your reality to be like, I felt a massive shift with you in that way of just like how you be in life, in this, like, again, bliss and effortlessness. Cause I am so supported. There's always infinite possibilities, and life is just giving me, direction to play. In what way do I want to play? Was there any other ones that you felt like were big for you? Other than obviously there's, we've already talked about, but.
Yeah. I think that, the body stuff for sure, was huge. And I think that again, it's something that we talked about, but this release of suffering was, it's probably the most, that, and being, the connection to always supported, that connection piece, that, and the release of suffering is, it's like indescribable, how how much those just have profoundly shifted my life experience. And because the release of suffering comes down, it's the micro things where I realize that I have a choice, like that there's some shit happens, because it does, and I'm like, oh, I can move through that. I'm going to move through this because that's what I do. I can move through this and it be really hard, or I can remember that, oh yeah, I don't have to suffer around this anymore. So, I mean, from the way that my, my energy levels throughout the day, to like how I deal with, knee pain at the gym, to, what happens when a client is, having a moment.
An effect to you because you're in your sovereignty of your wholeness and your bliss and your play. It's like, oh, interesting. What do I get to do with this? How do I get to be with this? How do I get to create with this? It's like, it all becomes play, right?
Yeah. It all becomes exactly. So it's like, yeah, I mean, that's just been, it's been massive for me. And I think the final thing is my, and this is only, this is a perfect example of something that a lot of people don't understand, but that the medicine is with you. Like it's still here. It's still with me.
Receiving messages and working with it after you, and you don't have to
Yes.
be in that space to then open up. Now you got like, thank you for bringing that up, because it's like, the things that I have access to, that were times that the medicine opened up for me, like opening up to be able to see the quantum field and grid and all these other things, then I could access it after. And I'm still now have relationship with grandmother and many of the plants and all the things, as to like giving me direction and just the connection to all things. It doesn't just only when you're doing this. If I want to say, if you're knowing how to work with it and integrate it and build relationship with it and do it, I think maybe a lot of people that haven't experienced in the formula in the way that we do would say opposite. They would just be like, oh yeah. And then that's why they go, oh, I need to go back and do this thing.
Yes.
Or they go to something outside of themselves instead of it's connecting you to everything within yourself. Now you're in collaboration with grandmother. And that is a part of it. And like she's still going to be communicating with you and talking to you and guiding you and see that thing, remember that from the jungle. And I was showing you this is that action you get to take on right now. And you get to shift this pattern, behavior, idea. And you're like, oh, I can actually, now I see this now without the suffering. Oh, so good, love. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So that's been huge. And that's when some of these gifts and my, attunement to energy and things like that has like really only just started to be magnified. And that's a recent development. And it's been what, 3 months almost since
you were in the February
end of February.
Yeah. Just within 3 months. Yeah.
So yeah, it's still with me and that's, always supported.
You're gonna keep quantum leaping. What I love is that, see, again, we get to then be in the integration of, again, the visions and the codes and all the things that happen. You're bringing that into your way of being. And there's things that get to be cleared out, coming back into your human experience to, again, cleanse the energy, bring the vibration up in, the attunement of all the ways that you're being and operating, bringing that into alignment, that then those things can drop in at another degree. It's like, okay, now that code that you got there, now it can be integrated because you've cleared out these patterns, behaviors, thoughts, ideas, attachments that were stagnating or creating a heavier vibration, not allowing that to coexist. It had to be cleansed so that it could, now that's the attunement. And you just keep, and then now you have that, you keep playing with that, and it just keeps, this is why I always say it just keeps getting greater. How much more can we receive? How much greater can it get? How much more fun and play can we have? So yeah, love. What would you say, just to kind of unless there's any other aspects you want to talk about, because I obviously want all these, as much as we can bring into awareness as possible. But I was going to say, what else do you feel like was really special or different? I mean, I know you hadn't done plant medicine before, which I've worked with obviously people that have and have had, one of the beloveds in our last group that went down after you, she had done plant medicines all over the world in many of the most famous ones that are out there. And she said to me, I feel like I've never known how to work with medicine until now. I had no idea how to work with it, how to actually access all the things. and how to get so much from it. It's like I had powerful experiences, but it was always kind of like, oh yeah, I had a few powerful experiences, and da da da. And she's probably one of the more aware beings that knew how to, receive more from it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's, I haven't even gotten to speak. I do want to do a whole show about the why we do it the way that we do, and how most of it's done outside, as to why people again don't have these amazing in ease and grace and upgrades into their consciousness that allows them to change humanity as well as their own human life experience, etc. Because they're having it in a very different way, and a lot of those pieces are missing. But what would you say was else you felt like was special about, could it be, again, the environment, the family, etc., any other things that you felt like were just special to you, or made it special?
Yeah, the family, but it's more than that. It's the space that the whole experience that they hold there.
Yeah.
It's so loving and nurturing and like caretaking of us individually and our experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could feel the love and attention that they had for every one of us, and they're so perceptive and really watching every person and just there for us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I would never do this anywhere else because the it's like nothing that I expected or had seen or had heard about. It's the opposite of that. It's really like every moment they are there for us, like holding that space for us. And I mean, you can feel the love that they put into it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's their life's work. And just to give you guys some context, so I've been working with one of my teachers. I call her my mama. She's been working with Aya for 80 years, and built the land, the sacred land. It was being built and blessed for 7 years before anyone stepped on it. It has it's a complete shielded bubble. So we're not only working with sacred medicine from the land that's made clean and pure, sacred teachers, that's their entire mission, their purpose, their family line. We're in sacred space where we're in a garden of Eden, again, for only a select amount of individuals, where we have the Maloka and the things. We're not, I mean, I could go into this, I'll probably go into this in another conversation about all the differences, but it's like most experiencers like, hey, you're in a house full of people and you're all just in this one little circle and you can't go anywhere, or in a Maloka, or, it's like, we're all like, okay, I took the medicine, I'm going to go out and be in the garden, and I'm going to be out there under this, this mandarin tree, and having conversation and expressing or purging or moving around and whatever feels called, and still being watched and taken care of, and healing work and all the things. And then we go into deep integration and processing after the experience, like all the things that get cleared and transmuted in that we're like, oh, okay, now I can go back in tomorrow and have a whole other layers of access available, from God fucking and opening up my pleasure codes to, we've seen it all. It's all available and it's all glorious. And it's the space, the medicine. So even if, my desire and intent for people, first off, number one is to hear the gift that this is available for us. This is, if those that have followed my story and my journey, I always say plant medicines are one of the biggest thing that I accredit the quantum leaping of my consciousness and my gifts and my abilities and living the life I do, because I still continue to, hence you're coming to my next experience, which is we're working with other sacred sacraments, but they open up other points and of access and different things. And to hear that that's available, not only from healing trauma and, just the whole system, to accessing our consciousness. This is for the greatest good of humanity. This is why I feel like at this time, the message is so important, because it is time for the new earth. We are birthing it now. And to continue to live an illusion where these things are, we are very safe. We get to go do these things in countries where it is legal. It's like, duh, these plants are giving us life and healing and life force energy and awareness and awakening and healing. I've seen hundreds of diseases and sicknesses and everything healed down there, myself included. And it's like, we get to bypass, and this is why it's so important to talk about. And I'm so grateful that you would share these experiences, because a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it because then everybody thinks I did drugs. Or that's how it was, 5-6 years ago when grandmother told me it was time to start talking about it. It was like, it literally was seen as drugs. And I was like, I had to release all the, trying to live in the box of what other people thought and whatever. And it was like, this is my experience. And now it's like, yeah, it's pretty normal to talk about all these different things. Yet there's still a lot of illusion around the way it's experienced, what actually happens, and it being legal, illegal, because again, the pharmaceutical companies, et cetera, would love you to just keep taking chemicals that you get to pay for so that you keep, surface solution. I'm like, how do I say this? Like bypassing the root cause. You just keep taking something that suppresses the physical symptoms of what's really happening. And you're a prisoner and a victim to continuing to buy into staying in this box of control and, limited pineal gland and just all the things. It's a, whole other access point we could go down, but it's like, this is so important for people to hear that this is available. And the second piece that feels so potent for me in what's really coming forth in these shares, I have a Marci on medicine book that we're going to be putting together this year, because it's sharing all these massive stories of transformation. The documentary came in where these people want to, follow my story and follow people going through the experience of Colombia, and also showing that the highest level beings on the planet that are changing humanity utilize these to awaken their consciousness and their gifts and abilities. And it reminds me of a great book about flow state consciousness, Stealing Fire. In there, I know they reference, I'm not remembering 100% which company it was. I don't know if it was Google or it was like a huge billion-dollar corporation where they even would not even look at a candidate as an option unless they had gone to Burning Man and done ayahuasca and done certain things, because awakening of their consciousness and abilities. So it's like, this is the potent message that this is where we get to go to be free, to be completely liberated into all that we are. And my desire in sharing these aspects is that if you're called to it and gonna do that, make sure, please, that you have this formula where it's like, who you're working with is well qualified. Even me, having worked with medicines for 14 years, I still am not the master trying to be the master jack of all trades, the one that is serving the medicine. I'm working with those people that's their entire life mission. It's clean medicine. It's sacred space. It's protected space. Otherwise it can be a fucking shit show. It's like I hear about people go to these spaces with all these people they don't know, just in a house. It's not even sacred coded protection, anything, no preparation, don't know how to even work with the medicine. They're just listening to music and ecros the whole time and having an experience, and then they leave and it's like, hey, you're done, go off. And they're fragmented and they're all fucked up and they don't know how to integrate anything or, what?
And then it's the same as the pharmaceutical industry. There's no different experience or an illicit, a dangerous illicit drug made from pharmaceuticals. It's the same experience. It's simply like an escape. So no wonder people are like, oh, I need to go back there again. I need to go back there again and do the thing again.
They had a powerful awakening, but most people walk away traumatized. I've had so many people say, I experienced it and I was traumatized. And I've been asked to be on a huge board of directors for a big collaboration of bringing forth that this awareness that as people get to work with these medicines, that there is, again, these things get to be in place so that it can open up the access of consciousness and for the new earth, and not be like, just, oh, so-and-so did it, now they're going to go serve it and give it to someone or take people or whatever. And there's no experience, and again, the space where someone releases their shit and someone else is picking it right up. There's a lot of very intentional, energetic things that get to be also brought into the space, or creating that sacred space, as well as knowing how to work with it and how to, all the things, the integration before, preparation, and after. Those things are all a part of the formula. And if you're missing one of those aspects, you can completely miss what's available with medicine and have have more shit to deal with because you're fragmented, have had a break in your psyche, don't know how to make sense of anything. And you're just, all fucked up. So, I want to just, it feels, I don't know that I've talked about this too much before. It was like sharing, some of my experiences that people would be awakened to, like, wow, that's what came of that this huge expansion, just like you sharing theirs. And I haven't spoken to you so much about why we do it the way that we do it and why that's completely different than most any resource that I know. And this is something I feel that we get to speak to more of, that it's like, I definitely, we're creating retreat systems so we can support more people that are trained by me and have worked with me, et cetera, to support people in these spaces. Again, even going to Colombia, they have the space and they're the ones who know how to work with medicine, but they're also not trained to integrate and process people and do those. It's like, prepare people before, do after. That's why even mama down there, she's like, I don't want to work with people who aren't working with you. It's night and day difference. So having all these pieces, and yes, we're creating those ways that more people can be supported. But if you do feel called to go and work with it, please make sure that, again, these elements are in place that you can have what's available and the expansion that's available and possible. So anything else to that you want to share, my love, or anything else in general that you want to share before we kind of close off?
I would say this is that I think like you're saying, like any high level leader or want to be high level leader, anyone on that path, anyone on this path, like this is no, it doesn't have to be plant medicine, but I would say, for me, it's a must do experience. Because there is having a coach myself, it's a must. And, working with you, as you've said, like, you can't give me what that experience can give me. No human can. And just to be able to continue to expand our consciousness in that way, I think it's a must for people who want to coach and lead at this level. And it's, what a life this is. Like, what an amazing experience in life we get to live.
Yeah. I think that's so cool to witness when we have that experience. It's like, it opens up a whole new way of being, a whole new level of life. And everyone's like, I was like, wow, this is our fucking life. This is our main life. Oh my God, this is our life. And you're bringing that into how you live and operate in all things. That everything is just lovership with all of life, lovership with yourself, lovership with the divine. It's just like, fuck, it's delicious and it's glorious and amazing. And I remember even when, like, again, Bliss was out of your, like, whoa, also just like the sensuality piece, the pleasure codes, right? It was just kind of like, that feels a little far stretched. And now it's like, you really are in this like, with all of life, which is so juicy and divine. And so, beloved, thank you so much for sharing your experience and also giving evidence to people that, would have bought into stories or some of the different ways that stories can show up to keep themselves from experiencing this higher level of consciousness. As much as the wording is, a human idea of like, you must do this. It's like, I feel the same. And how do I express where it's like, literally, this is a requirement for my soul to come into its more than my human brain could ever be in control of. Again, doing all the levels of conscious work that I do, there's still so much more beyond what my human construct can receive until I access and connect to these plants, connect to all that we are. So and I'm excited for your upcoming experience too, that gets to be some other beautiful experience as well. So, and this is why, even when we were down there, I think it was in your group that I said, like, grandmother told me, she's like, you get to come back this year. And I already was running 2 retreats within that month. And knew I was going to go to the States and I was going to be doing some other retreats, felt called to that. And she's like, no, you're coming back this year. And I was like, really? Like it was not, my human was like, no, it's like usually every 2 years that I get to Colombia and run a retreat, etc. And it was like, she's like, there's so many people ready for this. This is the new earth birthing. You get to come back this year. And I'm doing 2 more retreats in this October. So it's like, And it's time for more and, more of the beloveds to be able to go and experience this, in all the ways that they do. So, yeah, I'm super grateful that you are a beautiful example and even calling forth for people of taking radical responsibility for their own awakening of consciousness, and then being a reflection for people of all that's available. And you're, like you said, it's only been 3 months out, and you're still just feel like you're, still have so much to continue to integrate and experience and expand into, and it's just happening. So thank you for, thank you for doing that, and for being that, and for all the people that you affect. Wow. All the many coaches that you coach, and through your podcast and through the media company and all the things that you're sharing, how many people you affect. And so thank you for leaning in and stepping into what you even saw as really uncomfortable before. You were like, this is going to be so uncomfortable, but I'm going for it. And how then that got to be easy, and it got to be, your comfort zone has expanded so far that whatever was uncomfortable is now comfortable. And that's how we become at peace and ease. Anything that we're not at peace with, is showing us what gets to be healed in love. So thank you, beloved, for taking the time.
Yeah. Thank you. This has been amazing.
Yeah. Will you share really quickly, so we also have it here, where people can find you on is it just going directly to your website if they're really interested in being supported, how to become a greater coach and, training in that?
Yeah, you can go to my website, phylliswilson.pw. And I am on Instagram. You can find my podcast, We're All Right, on Instagram at All Right Podcast. And I also have a personal Instagram that I'll be leveraging at some point. But yeah, those are the places to find me.
Thank you, beloved. Yeah, you guys definitely check out our podcast. The conversations and the things that Phyllis gets to share is very expansive. So yeah, again, we'll say thank you for being here. Thank you for everyone who's listening, because we know obviously you guys are called to this for a reason, that you guys are the leaders that are here going. This was so potent for me after the last group that I ran down in Colombia, where I took my son to Mexico, and I was witnessing the collective and like the box that most people live in. And again, it was just, wow, I'm fascinated by the ideas and the stories and what they live by, etc. And I had such a strong hit, as much as those of you that know that my story, when I was, coaching just high level leaders and, billion-dollar companies and coaching at $1 million level, etc. And then I was called to go global and to just serve wherever I was called to be. And I was teaching in ashrams and in caves and, things. And it was like, it's time to serve the masses. And then it became making all my programs and things accessible that everyone has this available. And it came back really strongly, where it was like, see, I am here for those leaders. This is why I coach people like you, Phyllis, right? Like those leaders who are making a huge difference in humanity, because they're ready for it. They know they're here for their ascension. And it's like, I was witnessing, and to give context to this, I was witnessing these people talk about how, thank God once a year they could take a vacation and they could just drink and lay on the beach and tune out and, get away from work for a week. And I was just like, what? Like, that's the big picture. Like, what about fucking living your most amazing life every day? And and I was like, oh, and it just came in so strong. I was like, this is why I'm here for the leaders. Meaning those people so these people are like, hey, I save up all year to invest in getting my ass drunk and tuning out from life. I'm like, I work with the people who are like, they're literally constantly investing in themselves for next level. This is why, many of the people that I work with or that are in my programs have followed me they've been in my programs over and over for 10 years. And they're like, because I just keep expanding. And so I keep leading them down a pathway of greater expansion, evolution. And you're one of those beings where it's like, you're like, how can I not do this? Next step, next thing. And I'm here for my ascension. I'm here for my self-realization. I'm here for, yes, I get to fucking release all the ideas that of anything that is lower vibrational, that I can experience my most glorious human life. And in doing that, I'm in remembrance of who I truly am and why I'm truly here, and for the greater expansion of humanity. And I'm like, yep, I was like, oh, okay, I see it. That's why I'm here, for those people who are truly invested in their expansion, their remembrance of consciousness. And this is one of the beautiful ways that we get to do that and sharing this together. So aho to that. Thank you for doing it. And thank you for, again, so everyone listening, because I know that, again, you wouldn't be here listening to this if you weren't part of the woo-woo, cray-cray, I'm not here to be normal group of beloveds that are like, let's fucking rock this. Let's have the most amazing experience and change the planet as well. So thanks you guys for joining us on the Awaken Being Conversation to Create Change. Know that you can go to marcilock.com if you haven't yet, and there is you can access my Freedom Activators program for free. That will start assisting you in moving through any illusions, any perceptions, how to move through things, that are unconscious to conscious. And then there's, access to all the other things there. So we've got information on obviously the upcoming retreats, there's lots of activations, meditations, products and programs. You've got now access to Phyllis's amazing show and where to be able to find her if you're someone who's like, you want to up your game in the coaching space. And just know there's infinite support, that now you can hear evidence of how you can believe that. I'm infinitely supported. Look at all these options to continue to upgrade my experience. So thank you. And thank you, Phyllis. I love you so much. Thanks to all of you guys.
Love you.
You guys are so loved, infinitely, completely, always and always. And just, I hope that you can receive that. Mwah.